Aunt Julia Child. Welcome to my house. What fun we're going to have baking all kinds of incredible cakes, pies, and breads right here in my own kitchen. Beatrice Ojakangas, a Scandinavian cookbook author from Minnesota, teaches us how to make real Danish pastries, not only plain, but twisted, jam-filled, or sugar-topped. Learn how on Baking with Julia. Here is a platter of homemade Danish pastry, a beautiful braid, and these packets with a fruit filling, and this lovely dough that's just tender and buttery. And Beatrice Ojakangas is going to show us how to make it, starting with the dough, I guess.
We're starting with the dough, right. Good. What we have is 1/4 cup of warm water, and we have 1 package of active dry yeast. So we're making this liquid mixture because first we want to dissolve the yeast in the warm water. Then we're going to add 1/2 cup of milk.
Is this low fat or just milk?
You can use anything.
Anything.
Well, another thing that's in the liquid is an egg.
1 U.S. large egg.
1 U.S. large egg, and we're going to crack it just to check to see that it's okay and there's no spots or funny pieces in there. Okay, we'll whisk this up, and that's our liquid ingredients. We'll just let that sit. Now the second half of it, I'm going to measure 2.5 cups of flour. Dip the flour in, fill the cup heaping full, and then level it off with a straight edge.
Yeah.
So
then you always know that it's pretty accurate.
It's always accurate. You have to be sure. So we want to have it be even up to the top. And
2.5
cups. Cup. 2 1/2 cups, right. And that goes in here. Forgot to add something to our liquids, and that's going to be 1/4 cup of sugar.
1/4 cup of sugar, yeah.
That goes in, and a teaspoon of salt, which is over here. I'll measure that.
That's nice using the chopstick.
Yeah, I love to use a chopstick because it's so handy. Okay, and then we're going to take our 2 sticks of butter, and this is unsalted butter. And we're going to cut
cold and chilled.
Cold and chilled. It should be pretty stiff because we're going to actually cut it into the flour so that it stays in its own pieces. We're not making cookie dough, we're making a pastry. Then we'll just put these into the food processor and put the cover on. And now what we want to do is pulse it.
Breaking it up.
We're just breaking it up, and we'll see how big the pieces are after 8 times. 5,
yeah.
6, 7, 8. Now we'll take a look. I always have to hit it.
Yep.
Okay, now let's check that and see. We can see now that the pieces are pretty big.
Yeah, and this is to make a flaky dough, is that
This is to make a flaky dough. You want to be sure that the butter is cold.
Yeah.
And that it stays in pieces big enough so that when you roll out the dough, there's little flat, little flat pieces
kind of an
that
automatic puff pastry, isn't it?
Okay, now automatic puff pastry is what it is, sure. Okay, now we just take our rubber scraper and just gently fold it into the liquid ingredients, just until the flour is moistened. Now, this makes just like a rough dough, and this is how it looks. We just
But all the liquid has been absorbed.
The liquid has been absorbed. Now we'll just cover this with plastic, or if you have a great big plastic bag, you can slip it into the plastic bag. And it goes into the refrigerator at least overnight, and that will give it time to sort of stabilize and even out.
Yeah, all right.
And here we have the dough after it has sat in the refrigerator or chilled for 24 hours. And it is chilled, but it doesn't look like it's done much.
No, it doesn't.
It looks pretty much like it did. And we're going to scrape it loose from the bowl. And then to make it easier to handle, we're going to dust it with flour.
Oh, look at that. That flour shaker. I've never seen anything like that.
Oh, it's my favorite. I couldn't bake without it. And then we'll just turn this out onto the board. So now we have our rough dough, and what I've done is I've just dusted it with flour on both sides.
I see the pieces of butter in there.
Yep,
yes.
you sure can. And once I start rolling it out, you will be able to see the butter even more. Roll the dough, and what this rolling is going to do, first of all, I kind of call this taming the dough because it's really a rough dough. You're going to have to make it do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And right now it's a little bit uneven. See, it's dry here, it's a little bit sticky there. So now I'm just going to tame this into a foldable dough. Slap it a little bit, have some fun with it. Get it loose from here.
Yeah.
Dust the bottom. Dust the other side. Dust the top.
It's just like making the puff pastry, except you've got yeast in it, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, but see now pretty soon it begins to actually look like it's
like a dough.
Like a dough. Isn't that amazing?
Oh,
Okay, we've
that's wonderful.
folded that over one time. Now we're going to take this half and fold it over, and this half and fold it to the center. When we're rolling out dough, what I do always is roll from the center outward, center back, center outward, center back.
That makes for an even.
So that it's real even. I'm trying as much as I can to keep it as square as I can. And I'm going to just give it one more folding over. At this point, I'll just go ahead and cut it in half before I put it in the refrigerator. Then it's going to be...
Now, could you freeze it at this point?
You could freeze it at this point also. So we'll rewrap the dough, or else put it into a plastic bag and put that into the refrigerator.
How long does it rest now?
30 minutes is
30,
all
yeah.
you really need to let it
Because
rest.
you've activated the gluten.
We've activated it, and the yeast is going to start working again. It's amazing how it just starts
right away.
Right away. Yeah. All right, next we're going to make the apricot filling that goes into one of our pastries. And to do that, we start out with a cup of sugar. Now I'm just going to pack a cup full of apricots here. So we'll add that to the sugar, and we're going to add 1 cup of water. And then we'll just stir that up a little bit like this so we don't end up with the sugar all in the bottom.
No.
So it goes into the oven, microwave oven, and 10 minutes. You should stir it 2 or 3 times while it's cooking.
Why is that?
Just to pick the sugar up from the bottom so that it doesn't cake down there. And we'll start it again. And here we have our apricots. But we'll put them into the food processor now. Okay, and
that's a real puree, isn't it?
And there we are.
If you didn't have the microwave, you'd have to simmer them for several hours, wouldn't you?
And you'd have to be really careful to stir them so that they don't burn.
You know.
Especially with something that has as much sugar in it as this does. Okay, then we're going to get 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon. I'm doing it into a cup because there's some seeds here. And we'll want to measure out the 2 tablespoons because that's about what it'll take. We have a strainer. And there's a cup. There we go. And now we'll measure 2 tablespoons. And about a half a teaspoon of almond extract.
You can smell that almond extract.
So we'll stir this up, and that's ready to use in the filling. Well, now our apricot filling is finished, and we'll just put it into a little jar, which can go into the refrigerator, and you can use it for toast or whatever
What does that make
filling.
about?
Makes a little more than a cup, about a cup and a third or so. The prune filling is done exactly the same way, only we add cinnamon and vanilla to it. Okay, we're going to make a confectioner's cream. This is not a third filling, but it's a filling that we add into the pastry along with the fruit filling because it kind of mellows out the flavor. And we measure out 1 cup of cream, half and half, or if you can afford the whipping cream calories, it's even better. And then we're going to measure 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch into it. If you have a half tablespoon measure, that works really well. But I'm going to have to kind of make it.
Eyeball it.
Eyeball it right here, and we'll level it off and put that in. And then we're going to measure in 2 tablespoons of sugar. You can add an extra 1/3 tablespoon if you
Yeah.
like the extra sweetness in there.
Yeah.
And so it's 2 to 3 tablespoons. We'll whisk that a little bit here so that you get the cornstarch up from the bottom. It tends to want to sink to the bottom, then it'll just make a little cake down there. Now this goes into the microwave. This goes in for a minute. Actually, I like to do it a minute at a time. There we go. And after each minute, I take it out and stir it and then put it back in. In the meantime, we can get the egg yolk and the vanilla ready.
1 teaspoon of vanilla.
And 1 egg yolk.
Pure vanilla extract.
Pure vanilla.
Not the fake stuff.
Nope. The fake stuff just doesn't taste right. Okay, we'll take this and we'll give it a stir. It hasn't come to a boil yet. But I just stir it just to be sure that cornstarch isn't stuck to the bottom. After the second minute, it's begun to thicken up a little bit, but it hasn't thickened enough. So I'm going to put it in for another minute, and it'll come to a definite boil.
It has boiled up, hasn't it?
It has boiled way up, and that's okay to do when it's just cornstarch in there. You wouldn't want to let it boil way up like that with the egg in there.
And that really
see how thick it is.
That really is thick, isn't it? It's really good.
That's how you want it. Now we're going to add a little bit of that to the egg yolk mixed with vanilla.
So you won't shock the yolk when it comes into the
Well, we don't want to make scrambled eggs here.
No.
I'm going to do this with a scraper because we want to get it all. When you're dealing with small amounts, you can't afford to lose too much.
No.
Okay, and then we'll just stir that in. And the pastry cream at this point is probably hot enough to cook the egg yolk, but just to be sure, we'll put it back in the microwave for another 30 seconds.
We're not taking chances with egg yolk.
We're not taking chances with salmonella. Back in 30 seconds. And there's our pastry cream.
Well, it looks beautiful.
And as it's very thick. And then as it cools, it gets even thicker, but it's almost reminds me of lemon curd.
Lovely and smooth, too, isn't it?
Very hot.
Good.
And now we're going to fill some pastries.
Great.
All set to go?
Ready to go? Here's the dough.
The dough's all ready for rolling out. You can see the layers in there, can't you?
You can.
Okay, I'm going to dust the dough with flour just to get everything nice and dry. And we're going to roll this out to do the shaping, and we're going to roll it out into a 10 by 20 rectangle. And I don't know what it is, I get so excited, I think I should do this really fast, but we don't need to do it that fast. And the dough actually performs better if you don't try to rush it. But if you roll it out slowly, it comes out very even. We're going to go a little bit further here because what we want to do is get 5-inch squares. So in order to have 5-inch squares, it's got to be 10 inches across. Okay, now you can be very precise.
Let's be very precise.
Okay, well, we'll
do it the right way.
There we go, 20 inches.
Yep.
Now we're going to cut it in half at the 5-inch mark. Then we'll just draw a straight line, just like a carpenter. The old carpenters say, you know, you should measure twice and cut once. That's what you
my
do
husband
here too.
always used to say.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now comes the fun part.
Yeah.
We're going to fill and shape the pastries with our prune filling, with our apricot filling, and the pastry cream.
This would be nice. That's not a bare tablespoon, isn't it?
If you're using a teaspoon, it's about around a teaspoon. I like to be a little bit generous with the filling so that we have, so it's juicy. I like juicy rolls.
Yeah.
Next thing I'll do is paint the edges.
That's just beaten egg white.
Just with beaten egg white. So go all the way around the edges here because it acts as a kind of a glue when we start shaping the pastries here. Now, the first one that I'm going to shape is a little packet. You pick up the corners like that, and if you just fold the corners over, they flop open while they're baking. But I pick them up and just kind of pinch them together and make a little top hat there. See, and I'll give it a little twist like that.
Just to hold it together.
to hold it together, but you get that nice little blob
That's
on
that
top.
parchment paper here.
And that's parchment paper on the, I always use parchment paper. Let's take this one and make what the Danes call the trekanner, the three-corner.
Oh, the three-corner.
And we just seal the edges here with your finger. And that's how the three-corner is made. I mean, that's not...
Very simple.
Very, very simple.
You can decorate it with a piece of dough if you wanted, I guess.
Yeah, we have a few little scraps here. We can brush the top and be fancy. We should really glue it down with egg white. Now, one of the favorite things I do with prune filling is at Christmas time I make prune tarts. And that's a Finnish specialty. It isn't Christmas without prune tarts. And the way that those go is like this. You cut the corner to the center. Then you lift up the center.
Every other center.
Every other one.
No.
And there we go. Got a nice little star.
Well, that's nice. That is nice.
There's one that we didn't do yet that's very simple, and that is to make the spandauer, is what they call it. Kind of looks just like that. It's just like wrapping a baby in a blanket without pulling one end up.
That's very nice.
There we are. All set. And then they sit for about 30 minutes. We let them rise. And before we put them into the oven, we're going to brush them with more egg white. And we have some here that we did a little bit earlier. And we'll sprinkle it with pearl sugar.
Oh, I've never seen that.
That is a sugar that's used all over in Scandinavia. In Minnesota, we can find it in the supermarket. But other people may have to look in the Scandinavian specialty stores or into Scandinavian mail order catalogs. Okay, now these go into a 400-degree oven, and they'll bake for about 10 minutes.
Good. Oh, they look lovely.
They're all done. We'll transfer them onto the tray here.
That's a good idea. Just slide them on.
We could actually very easily slide them off onto the rack now, too, so they don't...
And they'll really cool nicely.
They'll cool nicely, and we won't have any
Do you eat them
on the
warm or cold or what?
That's the best way.
Warm.
Warm.
No.
Okay, well, now we're going to make our frosting. We're going to add 2 or 3 teaspoons of milk to a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar, and it can be kind of a thin glaze. We had to sift the powdered sugar because it had some little lumps in it.
They always do.
They always do. And then I'm putting it into a plastic bag. I'm going to close it up.
Well, that's in a zipper lock. That's a wonderful.
Yeah. And then cut a little bit of the corner off.
No.
And then we'll just drizzle.
Oh, well, that's very clever. That's kind of a royal icing, isn't it?
A royal icing made with milk, so it's not going to be as stiff as a royal icing would be.
Well, that's
and then
nice,
we've got
isn't
a
it?
nice little glaze over the top, and they're all
That's beautiful.
set for eating. Okay, here we have 3 different kinds of berries. Beautiful raspberries, blackberries, and blueberries that we're going to crush down to make about 2 cups of crushed berries. Get them coarsely crushed because the rest of the mashing will happen as it cooks. So we're going to add a cupful of sugar to this. And we'll mix the sugar in.
And the sugar draws out the juices too, doesn't it?
It does. You don't need to add any extra water. Okay, now these are ready for the microwave, and they'll cook for 18 minutes. We'll stir them 2 or 3 times in the middle. But I've already programmed this for 18 minutes. Okay, here it is. It's all cooked and cooled, and we added a tablespoon of lemon juice to it.
That's thickened up too, hasn't it?
Yeah, one thing you have to be sure to do is to cook it without a cover on it in the microwave because you want that all the moisture, the liquid, to evaporate.
It makes a lovely jam.
Fresh tasting. Okay, well, we'll roll out our dough now. Now we have the second half of our pastry. Remember, we made our packets out of the first half.
And you have your cold.
And sometimes when the dough is really cold, it's hard to start rolling. So I either pound it with my fist or I'll pound it with the rolling pin.
Does this again go 20 by
No, this one goes 16 by 10.
16 by 10.
Very fine. Very fine. Now we're going to take our parchment paper and put it underneath. This makes it a lot easier to transfer the filled braid to the
I guess it'd be
cookie
awfully
sheet.
difficult otherwise.
Now, the next thing I'll do is cut strips along each edge, about 3/4 of an inch or an inch apart, about 1/3 of the way into the dough. Now the next thing we'll do is take our lovely jam.
Or bottled jam never tastes like it.
Never
does it?
tastes the
No.
same, does it? And we'll just spread it right down the middle, because we're filling this braid with this jam.
Well, it doesn't look at all like a braid. I'll be very interested to see your movements from now on.
How this braid happens.
Yeah.
And then one thing I needed to do is brush the edges with
That's your same beaten egg white.
beaten egg white.
And that same nice pastry cream.
The pastry cream, we just spoon that right over the top. And that's just like having berries and cream inside a Danish or flaky pastry. So it's almost like a pie. Now the next thing we're going to do is turn this into a braid. And we do it just the way you braid. You pull the left side over the top like that. There we go.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it?
Makes a nice little braid. Kind of looks like lacing up a moccasin, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Now we'll brush this with some egg white. And now we'll transfer this onto the baking sheet. So if we want to put the baking sheet here, just move this over. Sprinkle the top with some of our pearl sugar again. Now this has to rise for about 30 minutes, and then it goes into the oven to
Do you
bake.
want a cover on it?
We'll put a cover on it. There we are. Here it is,
Look at
all
that.
baked,
It's
ready to cool.
swelled up nicely, hasn't it?
And then we'll just slide it right off the cookie
You
sheet.
see, that's wonderful having that paper, isn't it?
The paper
it so
makes
much
it
easier.
so handy. Then we have a glaze to put on top of the, just to decorate.
Is that the same glaze?
It's
we
not,
have?
it's almost the same, except instead of cream, we use coffee
Oh,
with the powdered sugar.
that'll show up more too, won't it?
Well, and you know, a coffee is such an appropriate flavor here.
Oh no, that looks very nice.
It doesn't take a whole lot, just enough to give it a shininess. So there.
It's wonderful what you've taught us today, Beatrice. This wonderful braid and then all these cute little pastries. And they're so good to eat.
Well, thank you. I love them myself.
Well, it was just a dear of you to come all the way from Minnesota.
Any day. Any day.
Then we thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Bon appétit!